In this video, I will explain what, which, and why you should focus on the skills as either a full DPS or a full tank type as an Omni Knight in Stella Arcana. First off, let's talk about the tank Omni Knight. Tank Omni Knights excel in drawing aggro, basically the vanguard in games. Using the Tenacious skill tree instantly gives you an extra 70% HP and 25% in defense. It comes in the trade of damage, but as a tank, this shouldn't be much of an issue. As for skills, the Tenacious skill tree focuses on 5 main skills, mostly on Warcry, but every other skill matters, as they give different boosts in your tanking. Warcry is the Omni Knight's bread and butter skill. While still being capped at level 60, it has 3 talent skills that you can focus on to upgrade. Absorption talent being the best at the moment, giving your Warcry a passive effect of 80% damage reduction. Next talent of Warcry to focus on would be Impasse. This is a situational passive skill which is better works as a solo tanker, like in for example a PvP match, when you are lacking healers. Instead of the regen every second, you are instead healed to 50% instantly when below 30% HP. This is a good skill the lower your current HP is. And lastly, for level 60 cap is the Roar skill. Its damage increase effect is not that huge, but we're after the damage reduction part of the skill. It increases your Roaring Wind damage and also increases the effect of your Hurricane talent, which is a damage reduction after using your Roaring Wind skill. Another good survival skill. Another important skill when going tank Omni Knight is the Omni Strike skill. Putting points in Seer and Might makes your Omni Knight a vampire per se. This skill makes you regen HP depending on your attack percentage when critically hitting an enemy with Omni Strike. The perfect combo is Eye of the Storm plus 3 stacks of Omni Strike. It's almost a certain crit because of the Seer effect, which gives you crit rate for 5 seconds. Eye of the Storm is pretty straightforward. Just put in points for its passive Titan to make you tankier the more enemies you pull with this skill. Roaring Wind is basically your main consistent damage as you multiply the skill's damage by 1200% as it ticks for 12 times. I could be wrong, but I counted it. This is the most important part. Putting 1 point only on Cyclone skill means you save talent points for other skills. 1 point is enough to get the job done as it already makes you immune to CC for the duration of the skill. Further increasing its level just adds percentage damage on your Roaring Wind. Now, the Hurricane talent is different. It does in fact increase its damage output, but it also gives you an additional damage reduction and it also affects your Howler buff. So max this out instead of Cyclone. Finally, Valor's Charge. It has 2 talent passives, Courage being one of the best for tanking as it gives you a buff that gives defense. Only put 1 point on this as higher level ups just gives extra damage. And the other is Collision. Just put 1 point on this as well so you can unlock the rune slots in the end. This gives your Omni Knight a boost in movement speed after Valor's Charge. Here's a list of how much points you want to invest in each skill so you can maximize your tanking and be immortal. Now for the Shudder type Omni Knight. If you want to be a DPS type Omni Knight, you need to use the Shudder Tree. You gain a 50% damage increase and 10% defense when using this tree. Shudder has 5 primary skills. The most reliable source of damage for a DPS Omni Knight would be Blade Frenzy. Ultimately, you want to prioritize this skill. It has the highest damage output when all factors are taken in effect. such as base damage and cooldown. One of its main talent skills is Frenzy. At max level, it increases Blade Frenzy's damage by 20% and grants the Omni Knight a 60% damage reduction. Pummeler is its other skill talent that you need to focus on. It increases its damage by an additional 40% at max level and buffs your Crescent Moon skill. And finally, the Moonlight skill. It further increases Blade Frenzy's damage by 20% and its crit damage by 50%, and leaves a debuff on enemies it hits with its final attack that further increases the damage they take for a few seconds. Picking the Shudder Tree gives you an additional skill, Retribution. This is one of your gap closer skills, and it's one of the key skills that make your Omni Knight act like a berserker in some way. It has two talent tree skills at level 60. One of them is Justice, which is also shared with Valor's Charge. This talent gives you Retribution and Valor's Charge a buff that gives you percentage increase in damage, crit strike chance, crit damage, and move speed that is stackable 3 times. Having buffs that stack on skills means that Omni Knights that make the DPS path are meant to be tanky still. Meaning we still need to focus on HP so we last longer in front lines while dishing out our damage. Another talent tree skill is your Advent skill. At max level, it increases your retribution damage by 30%, but the main reason why you level this up is for the sun effect. At max level, it gives a 40% chance to stun enemies hit. If not, they get slowed for 3 seconds. Crescent Moon is the Omni Knight's burst skill. It has 2 talent skills. One of them is shared with Blade Frenzy skill. Its first talent skill is Streak. At max level, it increases its base damage by 20% and a 25% to be cast against instantly. The other talent is your Pummeler skill, which is a passive skill that gives you a chance to have a 100% recast chance for your Crescent Moon skill when enemies are hit with Blade Frenzy skill 3 times. Roaring Wind is another good source of your DPS, as it ticks for 12 times. It has 2 talent skills, which is Wind Rage and Fury. Wind Rage basically increases its damage by 40% and makes you shoot an extra tick to enemies between 4 to 8 meters, away from you while spinning. Fury increases your movement speed while casting Roaring Wind and grants you Rage stacks. These Rage stacks is what makes Omni Knights hit like a truck as a DPS. Rage stacks up to 50 and you gain stack for each enemy hit by your Roaring Wind. Every stack increases your crit rate by 2% and crit damage by 2%. So by 50 stacks, you are sure to crit your next skill with an extra 100% crit damage. The final skill for the Shudder Tree is Valor's Charge. Basically, this is another gap closer skill of the DPS Omni Knight. He has 2 talents and one is shared with Retribution. Justice skill and Crusher. I would not suggest to focus on these skills as the damage increase is mediocre and you could use the points in extra stats instead. But it is still quite useful because the Crusher resets Valor's Charge cooldown when it kills an enemy. And the Retribution gives a buff for every Valor's Charge used. So as a DPS Omni Knight, farming with Valor's Charge is effective, especially in Plunder of the Ruins event. Having level 60 level cap, the Omni Knight offers a passive skill in the talent tree that gives all physical attacks effectiveness. We have a talent tree skill, Bravery, that basically increases the physical powers of the Omni Knight. It's a passive skill that increases physical mastery and gives a buff that stacks up to 6 times, that boosts physical damage every critical attack. This is most effective on multiple hit skills such as Blade Frenzy and Roaring Wind. Here's a list on how much points you want to invest in each skill so you can maximize your DPS output using the Shudder skill tree, aka the DPS OMNI Knight. Well, that's it for an in-depth guide on Omni Knight skills at level 60 cap. Hope this guide was helpful. See you soon!